Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Trading Bitcoin with your host, Tone Vase. For today's show, I will be joined by the one and only Sawcruheez, who recently has been doing or was doing lots of videos along with Tyler Jenks on the Hyperwave channel. He's taken a little bit of a break from that channel, and I'm happy that he's able to join us here on the Tone Vase YouTube channel. So Sawcruheez, how are you, man? I know it's still a really sad time. Tyler meant a lot to all of us. I hope you caught that show that Leah and I did about a week ago now, over just talking about how we all met and how Leah met Tyler, how I met Tyler. Thought I'd give you a little bit of time to just, tell your story about how Tyler changed your life a little bit.
Well, I certainly appreciate the opportunity to come on the show, Tone. It's always a pleasure to get the chance to chat with you. And yeah, I guess I wish it was under maybe a little better circumstances. As everybody knows at this point, Tyler Jenks passed away, and him and I were very close. And that was a very challenging time for me to process everything. Had to take a few weeks away from all social media to shut it down and spend some quality time with family and friends and have some long conversations, and that's exactly what I needed. So now I am feeling like I took enough time to grieve, and I'm ready to get back at it. But I did want to give a big thank you to everyone who has offered kind words of support and encouragement. That truly has meant a lot and has really helped me to recover. And in terms of how Tyler affected my life, I mean, I didn't know him for very long, but we could go for much more than an hour, just me sharing how he has shaped the way that I will move forward and how I have improved as a person due to the relationship that we had together. But since we don't have all day, I will just, I guess, mention how we ended up getting connected, and that was through the Hyperwave the Hyperwave Telegram chat group that I was invited to fairly early on, and we developed a relationship there with everybody in there. It's got to be one of the best groups on Telegram, just a bunch of really smart and intelligent people who Tyler brought together and allowed us to share ideas and charts and learn from each other. So then we ended up meeting in Vegas, actually, at the Unconfiscatable conference that Tone Vase puts on. And that was just a tremendous pleasure for me. I got to meet Tyler and Leah got to introduce me to some of the other people. And that was really, really neat. I got to help out with the first, with that Hyperwave seminar, putting together some charts. And from there, we got pretty much right to work on writing the book about hyperwaves. And yeah, I just learned an incredible amount about technical analysis from him, and the way that I trade will forever be changed. His Consensio has become the foundation of how I trade. So moving forward, my trading will never be the same thanks to him. And I also would like to think that I will be a much better person just due to the interactions that we had and the conversations that we had. He always really inspired me to be the best version of myself, and that's the one thing that I'm definitely going to hold on to tightly moving forward. And one thing I will always be grateful to him for is the way that he inspired me to be the best version of myself. So I appreciate you giving me some time to say some words there and having me on the show today to look at some charts. Without that, I guess, is all that I have to say.
All right, yeah, thanks for all that. And all right, let's, in Tyler's spirit, let's go take a look at those charts. I'll stick to my usual format that I have with guests. I'm gonna, start off with my charts. Jump in anytime. Feel free to just interrupt me and throw your thoughts in. We'll go through the Bitcoin markets first. Then I'll probably hand it off to you for your views on the Bitcoin markets. Maybe I'll leave the short term mostly for you. I'll very briefly comment, and then we go from there.
Sounds great. And I do have an S&P chart that I'd like to go over if there is time.
Of course. I'm pretty sure there will be. We're not perfectly limited. Oh man, I can't. Okay, no mind. Zoom is giving me some issues again. All right, that's fine. Okay, so let's go through the weekly chart. There's really not much to say about the monthly chart. We are now, a full week into the current month, or almost a full week into the current month, and the month is actually looking still pretty good. We are on a green 6 of 9, looking for that 9. And if we close at current prices at the end of August, this will be the second highest ever monthly close. And that is very, very bullish because we are still in full line of momentum. Here's the weekly chart. The weekly chart is currently at a price flip. We made another swing high last night. From the perspective of sequential, it makes it challenging to enter a bullish trade because you need anyone can trade this indicator in any way that they like. The way I historically traded it is I would wait for a green 2 to cross above a green 1. So and if that doesn't happen, then you wait for the following number to cross above the prior number. So if you followed that method on a weekly basis, that means you had a long trade activate back here the week of February 18th when a green 3 went above a green 2. Then again on this green 3 going above this green 2. This was a really challenging candle because I think that's the week that the New York AG announced that they're going after Bitfinex. I know it feels like ages ago now, back in April. But I believe that was the week, or something happened with Tether that week. Maybe it wasn't the AG, but something with Tether. And then the most recent time this occurred was when the week of June 17th started trading above the week of June 10th. And then we tapped out the week after that, and the prices flipped for the first time this year onto red numbers. Now we're having this price flip with a green 1. It's very likely this candle will close as a green 1, and then we'll be watching next week's candle. Now, if you want a better risk reward entry, you want this price to pull back a little bit, close the week in the vicinity of 11,000, and then have a very low volatility week next week, also in the vicinity of 11,000, with a breakout the week after. That would allow you to enter the bullish trade in the vicinity of 11,000. As it stands now, based on weekly scales, I would not be rushing in to bullish trades on a weekly scale unless next week starts trading above the current week's high. So that's my weekly outlook. The weekly outlook looks bullish from a Consensio perspective. Do you have any comments on the weekly chart based on what you see on my screen? Or if you want to, throw your own weekly chart on here, just steal screen share, Sawcruheez.
No comments. I agree with the analysis. Consensio is definitely looking bullish. The only thing that I am paying attention to is the weekly parabolic SAR did flip bearish, and that actually is going to be very important for me. As long as we are below a bearish weekly parabolic SAR, that basically prevents me from going long. So I will be kind of hanging out and waiting to see that. That would be my next long entry, is if that does get broken.
Hey, Sawcruheez, I know you guys made your own custom parabolic SAR for TradingView. How do I access that so I can throw it on?
Just type in Lucid and it should come right up.
Perfect.
And yes, it's very nice to be able to have that back.
I'm going to drop the other SAR because clearly that was inaccurate.
Definitely.
And all right, I'm sure I can change the color on those bad boys to make it a little, maybe I'll make it like purple, and for some reason I like, no, there's too many circles. We'll leave it as a cross. Okay, cool. Still kind of light. There we go. All right.
Excellent.
Okay, so there they are. And so you want to break one of these bad boys. Yeah, they're still kind of high up there.
They are still pretty high up there, but notice how long that last move lasted. With how long they stayed below. We hit, over 2 nines, and the parabolic SARs stayed bullish that whole time. So seeing a long extended run on the weekly parabolic SARs staying in the same direction like we got on the last, when they were bearish, they were in the same direction for a long time. And then when you get a reversal of the parabolic SARs, or in this case, the lucid SAR, after an extended run or a prolonged trend, that is a very important signal to me and tells me that I need to be either net short the market or staying on the sidelines until we do break above that. So that is still pretty far up there, but notice how when this run started, how far below the price the parabolic SAR started, pretty darn far below. And if you were using that as I'm not going short until this thing breaks to the downside, then that would have really behooved you in that circumstance, even though it started pretty far away from the price.
Yeah, okay, we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. All right, so that was our weekly look. I'm probably going to throw SARs on a daily chart as well, mine as well. Should probably add that to favorites.
Yeah, I find it very powerful on all time frames.
Where are my stars? How do I add it to my favorites?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
I used to be able to just click on, like, here next to it. What happened to it? Oh, maybe I need to, I don't know. Let me maybe refresh this. Yeah, that's weird because normally you could like put a star next to things.
Right. Yeah. I'm not familiar
can't seem to do anymore. I have no idea what I just added, but it's gonna remove it. That was a random thing. Okay. Anyway. All right, I'm gonna be consistent here. Make it purple and make it darker.
I like it.
Oh, I can make them bigger. Cool.
So yeah, we see something really neat here that I really like to see is when the TD sequential kind of lines up with the parabolic SAR break. So when I trade the TD sequential, I very much like to use the parabolic SAR as a way to confirm entries. And here we notice that we got the green 2 above the green 1. I wouldn't have taken that entry until that SAR broke. I would have waited for that confirmation to come through. And until that happened, I would have just been expecting a 1 to 4 candle correction. But then when we do get that SAR breakthrough with a green 3 above a green 2, that's a confluence of buy signals that I really like to see when those two signals line up, the TD and the parabolic SAR.
Yeah, no, that's good. I was also looking for only a 1 to 4 candle correction, and even though I wasn't looking at the parabolic SARs, I also had a double resistance cluster here of the 50 period moving average plus the setup trend line. And setup trend lines have been notorious for rejecting the price. And when all that broke on August 3rd, that's when I was pretty much bullish from the TD perspective, but not necessarily from the general chart patterns perspective. On that front, I became bullish as of 11,000, and we went straight up to 12,000. Wow, actually way higher than that. We hit 12,325 overnight last night.
Wow.
Yeah, so the big resistance cluster was here. Now that we've broken this resistance cluster and have gone sufficiently far above it, that has now pretty much turned into support. But even though this was like a quadruple resistance cluster between a 1 to 4 candle correction, parabolic SAR setup trend, those 3 are now gone. Those 3 are no longer relevant at all. All we have left now is the moving average, in my view.
Yep. I could see a horizontal line there that basically is right where the setup trend line was. That does look like a good historical area. Yep. So that does seem.
I have it on a 12-hour chart. That's that $11,000 mark. It's also on a 12-hour chart. The reason I drew the line exactly here is that if this had actually closed as a 9, this is where the setup trend would have been.
That makes sense.
From the run up here, but it would have been broken on this downside. But I still like this line's relevance because it rejected right here and it caused a big breakout there. So, and Tyler always had 11,000 as a major point back when he was doing videos.
Yep, I agree that that's a very important area. If we can, it looks like we're getting some reversal candles, starting to potentially get to a point of exhaustion. If we do get a small little correction, then that is the area I would need to see it hold above for me to expect a bullish continuation. If it does break down 11,000, that would be very significant to me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you as well. But from a daily perspective, I think the 4-hour chart, I mean, that's your bread and butter, the 4-hour chart as well. Like the daily perspective, it still looks pretty bullish. That is a monster reversal candle. But once we go to the 4-hour chart, I think a lot of interesting things are going to be here. I had this perfect channel drawn to the downside. We pierced this channel for 2 candles, and now we're back below that channel. We got a 9 right at channel resistance. I mean, for me, this would have been a perfect place to try and take a stab at a short trade, and right off of this 4-hour 9, even though I know I'm going against the higher level trends. But as a 4-hour trader, this would have been an opportunity for me to take the short, and that short would have been stopped out probably somewhere around no later than like 11,850 or no later than 11,900. That short would have been completely stopped out. What's your look on a 4-hour chart? And feel free to throw your own in there because I know you did a lot with 4-hour charts.
All right. Yeah, I'll pull up a chart that actually is looking just like what you're looking at, but there'll be a few other things that I can dig into real quickly. So pulling that up now, make sure I've got the right one. I believe that's it. And are you able to see this all right?
I am. Perfect. Yep. Full screen.
Right.
You can even make it bigger by getting rid of your, private messages. I don't know if you want to show those people. Yep, just click on that. Excellent.
So yeah, you and I have been looking at the same channel here, it appears. This has been pretty evident parallel channel, which basically that is the market structure that we have been following this whole run-up, is just the parallel channel after parallel channel. And now that we get one that has lower lows and lower highs, that is painting a much different picture than what we saw back in here. So I too yesterday was watching this action very closely for a number of reasons. Saw this reversal candle on the 8, and then we got the 9. The 8 wicked off of the top of the channel perfectly, and we were at a point of exhaustion here, but I was still thinking that there was a very good chance that we could go ahead and break right through the top of this channel. And if that were to happen, I was expecting a big move to follow. So let's go ahead and see why. So as we got this 9 and this 8, the parabolic SARs were well below the price. When the SAR is this far below the price, that is a good indicator to me that this is early on in a move that still has plenty of room to go, opposed to being at a point of exhaustion. So I was actually talking with somebody in Telegram yesterday about this, and just pointing out how this leaves room for a 1 to 4 candle correction to occur without violating the parabolic SAR. So that is what I would expect to happen from here is that we resist a little bit from the top of this channel, and then we get a 1 to 4 candle correction following this 9, which stays above these parabolic SARs. And if that is to happen, then I was expecting this channel to break through. But I did have one final area of confirmation that I actually talked about on Block TV yesterday morning. We were looking at the top of this channel as the price was running up and towards it. And I was showing how much volatility tended to follow when we broke through the top or bottom of these channels. And I said that the ADX, the average directional index on the daily chart, is what I would be using to confirm that the channel is actually breaking, that this market structure, that this basically range, we've really just been going sideways. Even though we do have lower lows and lower highs, we've been in a range for quite a while now. And I would expect that range to break once the top of this channel breaks, if that were to happen. And that is where I would be referring to the ADX on the daily chart for confirmation. So when it looks like we were breaking through the top of the channel on the 4-hour chart, I was waiting for this ADX to cross above 20. For that to confirm. Anytime that we appear to be breaking a market structure or confirming a pattern, the ADX should be breaking through 20 to the upside or finding support above 20 as it pulled back. So that is the very, very important confirmation for me, because there are so many traps in Bitcoin. There are so many times where it will look like something is getting broken, but you end up just getting some sort of weird trap. And in that case, the ADX can be very powerful. And this is another reason why I'm very comfortable being in a no trade zone here and would not be comfortable being in a position, is that as long as this is below 20, that strongly indicates to me that we are trapped in a range. And therefore, I want to wait for this to cross 20 before taking any position. So that is what I'm seeing there. The last little thing is this dotted bull trend line that we can see. That is where I will be watching for support to hold. If we do break this thing down, then I would no longer be expecting the top of this channel to get broken to the upside. As long as we are above this bullish trend line and holding that as support, then I do expect this area of resistance to eventually crumble, and if that happens, a big move would be expected to follow. So that is what I'm looking at there. Anything to add?
Gotcha, man. No, not really on the price, but since I'm looking at your chart and I see this on so many people's charts, you see that buy-sell spread? Like right in the middle at the top of your chart, there's a buy and a sell.
This guy?
Yeah, you know you can get rid of that. Right click and hit hide, like anywhere. I know you have a Mac, and like I see it, and everybody's saying, I always tell them, and I'm like, everyone's like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's no longer in my way.
That is amazing. Thank you. And, one other thing that I was gonna add, and this may not be the time, but Tone had a great webinar this weekend, and he went over some things that were really interesting. And one thing that I really liked was how you were using this replay function, and I have just not been able to figure out how to use it myself. So now
I don't know if you can use it on sub-daily charts. So you want to go to the daily chart.
Okay, that might be the problem.
I think that could be a problem. And now you hit replay, and then now you grab a candle in history.
Okay.
No, hit replay again.
Okay, I go to replay.
Hit replay, and now go find the candle. No, don't hit that part.
Okay. And now just touch a candle.
Right, just find any candle, and then it deletes everything in front of it.
Wow.
And then if you hit the play button, it'll automatically put candles in every few seconds, but you can manually control it by hitting the other play button. So, right, you want to hit the pause button, and then you want to manually bring in new candles.
See, now this, I think, is something that I'm going to start to make part of my daily routine, is just literally watching charts develop like this. This can be so helpful to me, is just watching how these charts develop. And instead of it taking 24 hours or a month for this, watching it over 10 minutes can really give you, kind of allow you to put your finger on the pulse of the price action. So this is something that I think is a very valuable tool and something that I want to start doing on a regular basis.
Yeah, you know what? Hey, give it a try on sub daily. I didn't seem to be able to do it, but people in the live chat are saying that you could. So, but close that replay. I don't know if you can have it on multiple charts. You want to exit out of that. Yep, hit yes, and then try it again on a sub daily chart. And no, don't hit that. Just go immediately grab a candle. Yep, there it is. So you could do it. Perfect.
Excellent. That's really cool. Thank you very much for showing me that.
All right. Yeah, and then I don't use the play button. I manually click the other play button to manually bring candles in to have more control over it.
Very cool. All right, I can stop share unless you want me to go ahead and move on to the S&P.
Yeah, why don't you move on to the S&P? We'll start off with your view of the traditional markets, because I don't know if I posted it in your Hyperwave channel, but someone had like a graphic of what happens after the S&P falls 2% on a Monday, and it's led to some of the most ridiculous bull markets in history.
Is that right? I always love seeing those types of charts. So let's start.
I'm gonna go ahead and find that while you start.
Excellent. Okay, so first thing we will start with is this broadening top pattern that Tyler had identified a while ago. He had been very concerned about this broadening top pattern, and I find it just fascinating how perfectly that does appear to have called the top of this move just by connecting a trend line from the let's see here, right here, the close on January 22nd, 2018, connecting that to the high of September 17th, 2018. And that perfectly connects to the top of this last run up. And that is, we've got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That is the broadening top pattern, as far as I understand it. That is the final point that we would want to see for this pattern to be valid is right here. That's the fifth point of 3 higher highs and 2 lower lows. So that is the most important pattern to me on the short and medium term. The long-term pattern is going to be the hyperwave that has developed over a very long period of time, getting this pattern in the S&P as well as the NASDAQ. And this trend line right here is just been very, very, very important throughout this run-up. Anytime we have come down to this trend line, we have found strong support, and we have not stayed there for very long at all. That is my phase 3 trend line. 85% of phase 3s do go on to enter a phase 4, while 15% will break down phase 3 and not complete the hyperwave. So that is what I was kind of looking at for potentially right here, is could we be starting phase 4? That's the question that has been at the top of my mind, basically looking at connecting kind of this close here with the December 24th candle, and then connecting it either to the wick or the close of that next pullback. And that could be a potential phase 4 as long as the weekly closes above this and we continue to support. Very low probability. This is just kind of, you pencil it in at this point, as Tyler would like to say, to just give yourself an idea of what might happen. And when I pencil something in, I'll just put it in a dotted line. So that's definitely something that I have been keeping my eye on. And then over the last pullback, the 50-week EMA appears to be providing support. Let's just look at how well these 50 and 200-week EMAs have been working on the weekly S&P chart. Ever since we got a golden cross back in 2011, the price has failed to stay below the 200 EMA for long enough to let them recross. And anytime price has come down to this 200 EMA, it has provided a tremendous buying opportunity. Same could be said about the 50 EMA. As we have come down here, that has often provided a great buying opportunity, and how I like to handle that potentially would be to scale in partially, maybe 25 to 33% on the 50. And then if it does come all the way back to the 200, we can add that remaining 75% or so. So notice back in here just how well this 50 EMA has been acting as support all the way through. When that breaks, you expect a return to the 200. So now I will be watching this very closely. This last pullback did close below, but immediately got an engulfing candle that took us back to new all-time highs. And here we are getting a very nice wick that is coming off of this 50 EMA. And that is very important to me because it is occurring higher than this. So as it stands right now, I am viewing this as a higher high above this. We've got this higher high, and this is a potential higher low. And we could potentially start to play with channel using that depending on if that does hold. So that, as of right now, looks to me like it is establishing a higher low with a very bullish wick coming off of this 50 EMA, which was very important to me, needing it to be above this area, this horizontal, as well as above that previous low. So as long as we are above this horizontal and we are above this low, I am viewing this as it looks like a higher high and a higher low. However, due to that broadening topping pattern, I do not really want anything to do with this until that broadening top is broken. So as it stands, I would expect the broadening top to get broken until price retraces below about 27.90. If that occurs, my last area of support would be this low at about 27.31. And that is everything I've got for this one. Should I send it on over to you, Tone? I think you might be on mute.
My bad. No, keep your chart there for a minute. I'm gonna throw a couple of questions at you. I guess let's go in backwards order. Now this is one hell of a reversal. I mean, off of that moving average, but also, so to me, normally I would be very, very, bullish at the end of this candle. But because the candle started on a Monday, I need to make sure that the gap doesn't just close, but we go past the midpoint of the prior candle. If there was no gap, basically, yeah, I wasn't thinking of it in Fibonacci terms, but sure, more as like a candle terms. But I would need it to go past the middle of that candle to be sure, because right now, I still see this as a potential gap close for professional traders to get out that missed it, okay? So I would need a little more than a gap close to be bullish. This is a great area for this big panic to end, because people are very, very panicky that another recession is going to start, all this insanity with China and all the rest. So that part looks good. My real questions are in regards to potential hyperwave phase 4. If you can zoom this chart out and throw that line back on, your potential phase 4 line. Oh, by the way, you can also save some time. I can also show it to you later. Like on your favorite drawing tools, you can hit favorites on them, and then they stay at that little bar at the top. So if you like, if you draw a lot of trend lines, if you click on that trend line on the left side of your bar, it's another useful. And then put a star next to that. See, it showed up on top there.
Sweet.
Thank you very much. Same thing with Fibonacci's and all the rest. So you don't have to keep going to the left side. You can just use that thing.
Perfect. I appreciate that.
Very neat little trick. So, so here's the thing, right? Like if you zoom this out, zoom out the chart, thinking a little too far ahead. If this is to be a phase 4, how long do you think it would last based on how long the prior phases were? Would you expect this to top out by like 2022?
That is a great question, and something that hyperwaves don't generally provide time targets, but that is something that Tyler and I really started to explore, was the relation of how long each phase is in relation to the prior phase. And we did start to see some interesting patterns. And the first one that is jumping out at me is kind of like a 2x relationship in terms of phase 2 is roughly can be expected to be about 2 times as long as phase 3. And phase 3 can be expected to be roughly 2 times as long as phase 4. And we were just starting to explore this, and we're needing to do a bunch more back testing to have any sort of confidence. But that is kind of the tentative relationship that we have started to establish. So now we can just kind of look at, if this was phase 3 that went from 2009 to 2018, that's 9 years. So if phase 4 is starting right here, I would think about 4.5 years, like maybe even a full election, like a full presidency, of taking us into 2023 roughly, would be about what I would think based on that small amount of backtesting we had done.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, it's more like 9 years, not 8, because the rebound happened in very early 2009, and you were pretty much in December of 2018.
Okay, good call.
So it is going to be closer to 9 than 8. And yeah, that pretty much takes you to the end of Trump's second term.
That's very, very interesting. When you see technical analysis line up with some very, very important fundamental factors, that type of stuff just really blows my mind sometimes, and adds at least some credibility to a time target when it's in line with a fundamental event like that, at least in my mind.
Yeah, no, that's pretty interesting. We'll keep an eye on that. And I think like the next 2 weeks will settle whether this is a potential phase 4 or not.
Absolutely. Could even be settled this week, depending on where this guy closes.
Yeah. Well, I would think that, like for me, I mean, yeah, the underside of this being a phase 4 could hold as of this week. But for me, I would really need the top to be broken. Like if we can achieve a new all-time high sometime in the next month or two, that can really set off the market to like start to go exponential.
Absolutely. I agree completely. And it still looks good to me as long as we're can hold this higher low. I am thinking that, I mean, this thing is primed for a huge move. It just looks like it is compressed, and once this thing does get moving, it's going to be either look out above or below, one of the two.
All right, so let me take over screen share. I want to, very briefly cover a couple of shit coins, and then, so I started doing this chart. I saw somebody on Twitter tag me in it. I wish I can put labels on here. I think there is a way to do it. I haven't figured out how yet. But yesterday, Litecoin was still, positive for the year, and it no longer is. I really wanted to get it's kicked off in 2009, like right there perfectly. And now all of the top 10 altcoins, maybe not all the top 10, I don't have 10 in here, but just the top altcoins like Ethereum, Litecoin, Monero, Ripple, EOS, they're all down for the year, while Bitcoin is up over 200% for the year. So this is like a nice graphic I like to see. I forget what this bottom thing is. I hope it's Ripple, but that's why I kind of want to label these guys. Not exactly sure what this is.
I think it is Ripple. Yeah.
Beautiful. That's Ripple. Now, this is, of course, those coins against Bitcoin, not those coins against the US dollar versus the US dollar. That could very well be up. But so as bad as the Ethereum and the Litecoin charts look, the Ethereum is already on a weekly 9, and Litecoin is coming up on its weekly 9. Its daily kind of came and went, and I'm not exactly. It still has some room to get to a 9 on a daily. And you were one of the guys that thought that Litecoin could pump on the halving. It pumped the day of the halving a little bit, but it's down big time. What are your thoughts on Litecoin now?
Yeah, I was expecting it to rally in the months leading up to the halving, and about a month before the halving occurred was the last time that I thought that a pump could happen. And when that didn't occur, I went ahead and exited about a month before the halving occurred on the USD pair. That's right when the trend line broke down and we got a death cross with the 50 and 200 EMAs on the 4-hour. So I did get out, and I actually also entered a short due to the pattern of the last halving was that it started to pump about 6 months before the halving, and then about 4 weeks to 6 weeks before the actual halving date is when people started to basically sell the news. And it had a strong rally in 2016 leading up to the halving, but about 6 weeks before that halving occurred is when it reversed and really started to sell off hard. So you can see that back after June it was actually 2015 is around when that last one occurred, and then it peaked there on that. You see that huge wick that peaked about a month to 6 weeks before the actual halving occurred. So I was very interested in being long up until basically the beginning to middle of July. And at that time, I was very interested in getting into some short exposure because of how hard Litecoin sold off after it halved and leading into Bitcoin's halving. We see there from 2015 all the way to April of 2017, it just in a death spiral going straight downwards. And that is exactly what I'm expecting to happen now. On Block TV, we kind of mentioned it. I think the halving had just occurred and we've gotten a small little spike. And I said, this is the spike that is going to get people to FOMO in and is where people are going to be waiting to sell it. And that this is I was definitely viewing that as a selling opportunity as we did get a small little run up. The USD pair tried to get above 100, failed to do so. And I was very much viewing that as a selling opportunity. Now this thing is primed to go back and retest 0.004. I would feel highly confident in that target.
Yeah, so it looks like I'm not even going to use the top of the wick. I'm just going to use the bodies of the candles. And Litecoin was down over 80% against Bitcoin after its halving, going into Bitcoin's halving. So if we project that into the current environment, again, well, this time I'm not going to use the wick. We'll just use the bodies of candles. And looking at, it's going to approach, its new 5-year lows. And I think that's very problematic for their mining, for 51% attacks, for just relevance of the coin.
Oh man, I'm just so excited about what I'm seeing. This is what I've been literally waiting for years, is to have Bitcoin take off and have alts not follow. And then now, if Bitcoin corrects, imagine what these alts are going to do if Bitcoin corrects from here back down to 7,500 or so. These things would just be toast. And I am very excited about what I'm seeing. ETH BTC have been waiting for that to break down 0.025 for years. And that has been one of my main indicators for when alts really are ready to crumble, is when ETH can break down 0.025, and then also seeing the same out of Litecoin. Like you said, I completely agree. These things are going to be in trouble in terms of marketing and miners. This is going to be very much what could send Bitcoin back to 90% market cap dominance. And I'm really excited looking at these alt charts.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you. Also, hey, this was the graphic when we were talking about the S&P 500. So in the last 10 years, these were all of the days where S&P 500 fell more than 2%. And here's what happened after. And every single 1 year return after that was amazing. But it is a little biased. We've been in a 10-year bull market, right? But the next day, we're still in line with this statistic. I mean, S&P is up huge today, and all but a handful of days, S&P did really, really well after a 2% correction.
I'm just fascinated by charts like this that paint such a clear picture in terms of how good are the probabilities of just betting on this chart right here, in terms of taking a day trade the very next day, also open a small swing trade for the next week, and then maybe open a position for the next year, just based on something as simple as the market is down over 2% on a Monday in a bull market, in a long-term bull market. I mean, it's fascinating to me how reliable some of these really weird things can be. And if that was a game at a casino, I would be definitely betting on green.
Yeah, that is true. I'm not sure what this chart was. Sorry, hold on. Oh, I have the same chart twice. Let me just close it. Okay. All right, got it. Hey, do we want to take a quick peek at gold?
Yes, gold is very interesting right now.
Weekly is good for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Weekly and daily are both in very strong positions. That's a great move that we got. Do you have a Fibonacci that we're retesting? Is that what that is?
I do. That looks like a 50%. Once we broke that 38%, we went up to that 50% very quickly.
Yep, sure enough. Absolutely.
I don't really see the 50% as being critical. Once you break a 38% Fibonacci, at that point, I am looking for that 62%. And if we break the 62%, at that point, I am looking for new all-time highs.
We've got the exact same outlook. My target has been 1,600 ever since we broke through about 1375. I've been targeting 1,600, and if we can, and I do not think that we would find too much resistance at 1,600. If we can break through there, then I will absolutely be targeting new all-time highs. Completely agree.
Because momentum could now set off, and according to the rules of sequential, this is pretty textbook, right? We had a 9, we did not really correct. We had a green 1 following the green 9. We now have a green 2 above a green 1, above the 9, working on a second consecutive 9, which is not part of the actual TD indicator. This is something that you only have in my indicator. So I am looking at significant upside in gold. And as much as it doesn't necessarily make sense, hey, momentum is momentum, and you trade the chart in front of you.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. There's so many times when a chart or a position or an entry doesn't make sense to me. And often those are the best entries. Like when I'm trying to make sense of a signal, that's often when I will cause myself analysis by paralysis or something along those lines. It's so important to just forget about what you think and go with what the chart is telling you. That is what you'll see time after time. The best analysts and traders have the ability to just put aside what they think and what they believe, and they just go with what is in front of them on the chart.
All right, let's take a look at a couple of stocks. I have been keeping an eye on GoPro because, you know, it's the stock's been beaten up for quite a bit. And normally I say, hey, when you're breaking new lows, that's not a good sign. But it has rebounded from this area on 2 separate occasions, going up, you know, almost 100% each time. It's back here again. It's coming off a weekly 9, and on a daily scale, it's still only on a 5. It came off another bad earnings call, and I don't have a perfect entry yet, but I mean, if you are the kind of person that is looking for a cheap stock that's been beaten up long enough, you know, this is a low risk play because your stop loss would simply be the break of the $4 floor.
Very interesting. Could you put that back on the weekly?
Yep.
So it looks to me like on the one hand, we would really want to support that setup trend line that it appears we have already broken down. But what I'm actually seeing here is a very nice broadening bottom pattern. That wick that went above 750, that looks to be higher than that previous high. And then that last red 9 down there at the bottom, that was below the prior low. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4. And on this one, if we get below that 9, on this move, if we get below that, that would be the 5th point of a broadening bottom, which could really be perfect. And that's the thing about these broadening patterns, is they seem to basically wreck everyone that isn't paying attention to that pattern specifically, because each time it takes off and creates a new high, it looks like you're off to the races, and then it comes back and creates a new low. And that's actually when you do go off to the races. It can be so hard to trade broadening patterns unless they are identified as such. And in this case, what I could see happening is a red 2 falling below a red 1, taking out $4, which makes everybody think that this is ready for a big move to the downside. And at that time, it could immediately reverse after the 5th point of the broadening bottom. And there could be a lot of upside if we did find some sort of entry on a 5th touch point of a broadening bottom here.
And I will add to that, actually, now that I took a look at the actual prices, right here, the ultimate low of this move was exactly $4. So if I was going to trade this, I actually would not have a stop loss at below $4. I would see that as, you know, professional traders trying to stop loss hunt. I would actually, if I was to, you know, to buy into this now, I would actually go in a smaller position size with intention to double down at around 390, somewhere between 375 and 390 if it does fall below 4. Because at this point, it is more likely that it can whipsaw there and immediately reverse just to, you know, stop loss this guy. Because people will set their stop losses there thinking it's a brand new low. So that would be one of my exceptions. Normally, I say never double down on losing trades unless you had a plan to do so before the first entry.
Absolutely. And that's very, very important. What Tone went over there, a couple of things, is taking a small position here. It's very important to really think hard about your position sizing. Consider the fact that you can literally beat the casino in blackjack just by adjusting your bet sizes. That's all that you need to do, is that bet more when the deck is stacked in your favor, and you can turn a losing game into a winning game. So think very, very, very hard about the position sizes that you are taking, and understand that if you take a medium to a large position, you cannot be doubling down or adding to that if it moves against you. But if you do take a small position, that gives you flexibility to add if it moves in your favor, or if it moves against you, it would remain flexibility to add to that, which would improve your cost basis and potentially improve your risk reward. So bet sizing is something that I don't think people can think nearly enough about, and I'm glad that you brought that up.
I'm keeping an eye on Lyft as well. It hit its first 9 since IPO, immediately went down, hitting a 9 in the opposite direction for a beautiful trade. And now earnings is coming up, I think tomorrow, in fact. So I would stay away from it. But I do like this 9 to the upside if it wasn't for earnings. Here's another stock that we're keeping an eye on because this was another recent IPO that traded as high as $50 after the IPO and is now down to 13. Now, these are the kinds of, stocks, if you're going to be searching for, a stock that people have given up on, it's a lot of these IPOs that have a good chance to rebound. I mean, even Facebook did this if the IPO is mispriced. Now, I did like this 9 combo 13 on the same candle, but we never traded above that 9, never gave confirmation. So I would hold off on this a little bit. There's another sequential 13 coming, but it's another stock that professional traders and investors may not want to see below $10, and they might try to, rally into this name.
Quick question for you. In terms of if you see a really good setup, but earnings are approaching, do you have a cutoff? Like if we're a week ahead of earnings, I'm not going to be trading this. Is there a certain cutoff you have there?
No, I mean, you're good up until the day before earnings. It's just a risk of, it's kind of like in Bitcoin. There is, everyone like you want to make sure your hardware wallets are protected from it's called the evil maid problem. So the evil maid problem, like what happens when your maid steals your hardware wallet from your house, right? So that's known as the evil maid problem. If you're trading a stock leading into earnings, you need to worry about the sneaky mailman problem at the company, right? Because they can take a peek and someone has a big mouth, and then next thing you know, the news leaks a little bit early. So it is a risk normally. The real risk is if you are a very diligent trader, it's not a big deal. But the reality of the situation is we all get busy. And even though I know when a certain stock's earnings are coming, even I've gotten caught with like my pants down as like, oh shit, I knew the earnings were today, but I didn't check if it was before market open or after market close. And now I'm kind of screwed and I was also going to get out at like 3:40, but then I got a phone call and, I got stuck in traffic and all of a sudden I didn't exit, right? So you just want to be careful. You have to, it really depends on how diligent of a trader you are. Yeah, if the stock is moving in your direction, if you short this name or if you short Lyft and earnings are tomorrow, just make sure that that earnings are after the close and not before the open, right? So that you still have your chance to get out last minute. But if it's moving your direction, stay with it. As far as entering new trades right before earnings, I usually don't. If I happen to be in the trade, I'll hold it as long as it's good. As far as entering trades right before earnings, I would use options, not holding the stock out, not the stock outright.
That makes sense. Those gaps that occur during the earnings season are definitely enough to keep me out of there, but the options, I'm sure, would be the way to protect yourself from that. So I appreciate you elaborating.
Now, Netflix looks horrible to me right here. We are making a double bottom after a huge, earnings miss. And we bounced off a 9 for a textbook 1 to 4 candle correction. And we're now sitting here at a double bottom. What are your thoughts on a chart that looks like this?
Well, it looks like those moving averages are just starting to cross, and that should take some time. Therefore, I would expect further consolidation to let those moving averages get in the correct posture that would allow for more downside. So it looks like a bounce from here back up to 325 to 330. While that could be an ideal kind of bounce up and into a death cross, which would be an awesome selling opportunity. Seeing that huge unfilled gap sure makes me wonder if we would just blast right through to fill that thing. So yeah, that's definitely an interesting chart that I would be expecting, if anything, a consolidation or a small bounce.
Yeah, here's the other one I was looking at. This is the weekly chart last week. A beautiful 913 right at setup trend on Budweiser. I know you're a beer drinker. It's this this one isn't one of yours, right?
Nope, I'm from Colorado. We drink Coors.
So yeah, so this was a beautiful 9 on a daily inside a weekly 913 at setup trend. So this is basically what the notification service is about, to try to find gems like this and throw them in the notifications. And when you see, all the stars align, that's your trade.
That is a gem indeed. Not only do you have the 2 9s, you've got the weekly sequential 13, you've got the weekly setup trend line. And what's most important to me out of all of that is that the price is below a bearish moving average. So it's a long-term bear trend that you're getting a significant bounce that is bounced into a huge confluence of resistance. So selling that is the ideal setup. I mean, that is a gem for sure.
And like even if you just zoom out, like look, every single peak has like a 9 stuck on top of it. Look at this.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Not these, unfortunately, not this one, but it's back right there.
Incredible. So in hindsight, it looks like those 9s are so easy. That's just a piece of cake. You just go and sell every 9. But then in real time, it's like, geez, it's a lot harder to do it in real time.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, you are getting, viewers are getting this setup in real time. So that is very important to pay attention to your emotions when you're looking at something in hindsight versus something in real time.
Trying to remember why I think I talked about this stock, but I don't remember in what context, so we're going to leave that one alone. All right, I think we're okay. I'm not going to go through every single stock on my list here. I try to remember the interesting ones and try to follow up with them. I try to remember which ones had the 9s. I know Starbucks has been interesting for quite some time now, mostly because of its topping on a 9 after a monster run-up. And it looks like it's due for a pullback. But you do want to watch the overall market and make sure that things are in line. All right, I'm going to go ahead and leave it here. And let's go over to tonevase.com. Sawcruheez, I'm sure you're going to have your own website eventually soon. I mean, the Lucid website is still around. You guys can still purchase the on-demand videos and webinars that Tyler used to teach. And over on my site, we are going to list, it's already there, the latest webinar. That's the risk and account management. Should probably change the name to risk and position sizing. Probably would have been a better name. I will be in Dallas in a couple of weeks. And of course, the options webinar. As for the financial summit, another reason I wanted to have Sawcruheez on today, Sawcruheez will be coming to Bali to teach Tyler Jenks techniques and hyperwave. We don't have your profile on here yet, but it should be here within 24 hours. We're gonna my graphic designer has been really swamped with all the work, but we're gonna have some new pictures coming in here, some nice design pictures. And hey, thanks for joining us in Bali. It's going to be a great event.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited. That will be a great event for sure. A bunch of great people to meet and rub shoulders with, and potentially have some beers with as well. So I'm really looking forward to that.
yeah, guys, go ahead and check it out. It's called thefinancialsummit.com. With the price of Bitcoin rising, the entry for the event has just gone up, but Bitcoin price might pull back. We will see. If not, I really like keeping my prices in Bitcoin. We'll see what happens, but please check it out. Unconfiscatable is coming back. Of course, Sawcruheez will certainly be there as well. And my calendar should be finalized by end of this week, and probably for most of the rest of the year. So keep an eye on that as well. All right, man. Any final thoughts?
Nope. Just wanted to thank you very much for having me on. It's always a pleasure, and I'll hope to be back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no, I'd love to do some more videos with you. And guys, I might be bringing on other traders. I would personally like to hear their opinions as well. I know I don't have time to watch other traders on YouTube. People keep asking me about other traders, but I'll try to see if any of them want to come on this channel, and I'll try to collaborate a little bit more often. Once again, we want to, say our blessings and rest in peace to our good old friend Tyler Jenks. And thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all on the next one.